Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my Why Should Pull Mavuika video. In this video, I'll basically try to promote Mavuika's upcoming banner by telling you why I should pull for her and also give you a small little damage showcase. So grab some snacks, sit back and watch me ramble about the best character in this game, Mavuika. But now, why should you pull for Mavuika and why do I like her so much? Well, the short answer is that she's pretty amazing, but the longer answer is that she's an extremely useful and all-round OP unit to have. Not only is she a great starter unit for newer players, but you also don't have to memorize any complicated mechanics or team setups to make her work. Just simply do her E, then the burst, and she'll burn every enemy to the ground, making her fantastic for pretty much everything. Exploration, farming, abyss, you name it, she can do it. Another reason why I like Mavuika so much is because of her big damage. Not only does she have great AoE, but her burst is literally like dropping a nuke on your enemies, meaning that you can basically one-shot everything that comes in your way. And if you're someone like me and just like to mess around in the overworld, having Mavuika basically means that you have the perfect team for exploration because the skill alone is enough to kill most mobs. In fact, you can also use this E skill to apply pyro and pair her up with someone like Mulani because Mavuika's skill can also give more damage to your other characters as well. But unlike units like Xiangling, she does not have enough pyro application to get consistent waves from Nuvolet, so do keep that in mind. Another really unique thing about Mavuika is that she's a character that's pretty much great for every level of investment. For example, if you're a newer player and don't have the resources to build an entire team around her, you can just use her as an off-field sub DPS or even a main DPS at times. But as your account progresses and you get more resources and also some Natlan characters, she'll start to become a top tier DPS kind of like Arlecchino and Nuvolet. And of course, if you get her best in class supports like Citlali or Shilnan or even her signature weapon, you can also go even further and maybe even make her the strongest DPS in the game. I also know that nearly half of you guys also play Genshin on your phones, and Mavuika can be a great unit for mobile players. Her playstyle is relatively simple, meaning that as long as you're doing charge stacks for burnouts, your enemies won't live for long. So while looking up Mavuika videos, you must have come across this common misconception that says that you need at least 3 Natlan units to make her function properly, and this could not have been further from the truth. So if you don't know, energy particles are pretty much useless for Mavuika, and to get her burst, you actually need to consume Night Soul points instead. Now of course, having both Citlali and Shilnan obviously makes this easier and can also help you reach the maximum damage ceiling, but they're definitely not required. In fact, I have a full video where I only used Mavuika and Shilnan and she still performed incredibly well, so make sure to check it out after watching this one. But now with the recent Natlan patches, you must have seen that pretty much every new 5-star has a weird exploration gimmick, and Mavuika easily has one of the better ones of them all. Now sure, at first this might feel a bit clunky because it gets stuck everywhere and is clearly not as smooth as Shilnan's roll skates, but it can still be surprisingly useful even outside Natlan. And if you combine this motorbike with Shilnan, you'll have an infinite source of fast dash, making exploration much easier. Also, to farm for Mavuika's artifacts, you're most likely going to be doing the Natlan domain, which can be one of the best ones in the game. Not only does that domain give you the Obsidian Codex set, which is perfect for basically every single Natlan DPS as it has free 40% crit rate, but it also has a Cinder City drop that are great if you want to build Mavuika's supports or even use her as a sub DPS because it gives elemental damage bonus by up to 40% for your DPSs, meaning that you can farm for the entire team in just one single domain, helping you save resin. And while we are speaking of artifacts and stuff, let's not forget that Mavuika can be one of the easiest characters to build as well. Now thanks to the Codex set's passive, you don't have to worry much about the crit rate, plus she basically has no energy requirements, which will help you save a ton of headache. But with that being said, she does need a good balance between crit rate, crit damage and EM to function properly, so do keep that in mind. And as for the weapon option, she can actually be surprisingly free-to-play friendly. You see, one of her best weapon options is actually the Mail Flower, which is a free event weapon with an EM main stat that'll make building her easier as you don't have to worry about getting crit on your artifacts. But if for some reason you don't have this weapon, you can also give her the Pain Slasher, which most people probably have multiple copies of by now. But honestly, you can just skip all of this if you have literally any of the 5-star weapons. Just slap one of those on Mavuika and she'll be good. Now another great thing about Mavuika is that her early constellations are amazing. A C1 not only makes her better for exploration, but it also makes it much easier to get her burst. And on top of that, it also gives a 40% attack buff, helping you in battles. And as if that wasn't enough, a second one is also pretty busted as well because it can reduce defense by 20%. She's honestly one of those characters that doesn't really have a single bad constellation. But with that being said, you don't need them. Her C1 or C2 might look good, but if you're doing proper rotations, you won't even think of them. She's honestly perfectly fine at C0, and I can assure you that there's nothing good ratios or proper rotations cannot solve. Another thing about Mavuika that usually goes underappreciated is her idle animations. Now you already know what happens when you go AFK for even a second. These characters start spamming their voice lines and become kinda annoying. But with Mavuika, you don't have to worry about that. She doesn't make much noise, and when you come back, you'll have a hot biker lady just aura farming. So Mavuika feels kind of future-proof. I mean, she already has good teams and build options, and on top of that, she's very suitable for most of the different types of enemies and game modes. I personally think that she'll always be a good character, and you can rely on her for doing good damage as long as Hoyo doesn't add pyro bosses. And finally, let's start with the most important point. She is hot. Now I I know that she gets a lot of hate for the biker outfit, and truth be told, I wasn't really a big fan of it at first either, but she kinda grew on me. And all I'm gonna say is that there are around 4 billion women on earth, and God decided to make Mavuika the hottest one of them all. But now, let's stop this glaze for a minute, and let me quickly show you something that you're here for. My Mavuika's damage and build. So as you can see, my Mavuika is fully raised, she's level 90. For the weapon, she's obviously on the male floor. For the artifact, she has the 4-piece obsidian codex set, and here are the individual pieces real quick. Of course, she's at Constellation 0 and the talents are at 188. So let's look at the final ratio now. So she has around 200 EM, 90 crit rate with 230 crit damage, a pretty decent build. So you know what, let me show you guys a quick damage compilation with my favorite teams. But now let's go with some major reasons why you should not pull for Mavuika. I mean, you probably will, but I have come up with some points to help you save those PP gems. So first off, let's start with the most obvious reason, Nod Krai. Now if you played Genshin for a while, you already know that regional updates are some of the best ones we get, and Nod Krai is going to be no different. Not only does the dev talk sound absolutely insane, but during these patches, we'll also meet some brand new characters that we have been waiting for a while. And on top of that, we're also getting a bunch of reruns next patch, along with this persona looking robo girl. So if you're tight on those PP gems, you should get the character that you've been saving for first, because Mavuika, being an Archon, is guaranteed to get a rerun later. Another big problem with Mavuika that no one really talks about actually comes from her biggest strengths. That is none other than the fact that her DPS is just too damn high, which can ruin your perception of damage, making your other characters feel sort of obsolete. For example, even though I have a really nice built Navia whose skill hit for 300Ks, I sometimes find myself thinking that using her is kinda inefficient, as if I have a voice in my head telling me to just press the Mavuika million button. Now this might sound like another glaze point at first, but in reality, this is a really big issue, as it might make you feel dissatisfied with your current roster and maybe even tempt you to start pulling for characters or constellations that you don't really need. And as if quote-unquote damage power creep wasn't enough, Mavuika also spoils exploration as well, because after getting used to the Shonen and Mavuika combo, using other units just feels painfully slow. And even if I want to try using other characters, I just don't, because once you ride Mavuika, you won't go back to the Stone Ages. Another big problem with Mavuika is the fact that she's just another pyro DPS. Now sure, she might be doing millions of damage with just her burst, but do you really need your 37th broken pyro character? Now trust me, this is coming from someone who basically has every single pyro DPS. You'll only use one of them, which will most likely be your newest one. Plus, if you already have Arlecchino, she can actually make your life easier thanks to her having more team comps and much easier to get artifact sets that Mavuika simply cannot give you. So if you already have good enough pyro units, focus on diversifying your account with other great DPSs of different elements instead of just investing vertically. And now finally, let's start with the most annoying thing about Mavuika, which is none other than the reliance on very popular supports. Now if you want to get the most out of her, you'll almost always need Shulna, a character that is never out of demand. And on top of that, she also loves having Genshin's golden boy Benny in her teams because he works with her perfectly. But with that being said, I've heard that Ian-san can be a good replacement for him. So if you want to use Benny for other teams, Ian-san can free him up and also give you more Night Soul points thanks to a complimentary kit from Mavuika. Now after hearing all this, you might start to think that maybe you should get the other big 3 DPSs because Mavuika doesn't seem as goated as people say she is. Well, that is fair, but always remember that
motherfuck the big 3, nigga, it's just big me, nigga. I'm really